maybe some sunglasses. Hey guys, did you have fun playing this game I suggested last Wednesday, Musical Clothes? We've had a lot of fun playing it, and I hope you did too. Let me take my sunglasses off and move to a better seat because it's a little hard to see, and then I'll read you your book. Zoe's Hiding Place by David Powelson. The sun extended its morning glow to a light blue bungalow in Mulberry Meadow. "Zoe," called Mama, "it's time for breakfast." Zoe Mouse peeked out from under her purple patchwork quilt. "This is my favorite place to hide. I feel so safe and cozy. No worries here." "Zoe," Mama called again, "it's time for breakfast." Finally, she jumped out of bed, dressed, and smoothed her long pink tail. Then, collecting her backpack and her favorite book of fairy tales, she pattered down the hallway as quiet as a mouse to join Papa, Mama, and Baby Zach. "Good morning," she beamed. "Good morning, Zoe," replied Papa. Zoe hopped on her stool and started to eat her breakfast bowl of nuts and fruit. Mama noticed Zoe's fairy tale book peeking out of the backpack and said, "Remember to tuck that book away when you arrive at school. Miss Minnick deserves your full attention." Zoe replied, "I will, Mama. I better go. I'll see you this afternoon." With the long walk to school before her, Zoe was free to dive into her book. She read a little, then walked a little, and then read and walked, imagining each and every detail. She barely noticed her friend Layla joining her along the way. Layla interrupted Zoe's thoughts with her usual string of how-do-you-dos. "Good morning, Zoe. What are you reading? Would you like to sit together at class?" Zoe happily replied, "It's my new fairy tale. I'm trying to finish it by the end of the day, and yes, I'd love to sit together in class." The girls entered through the thicket to where they had gathered for school. They hung their bags on some handy branches and sat down on a carpet of clover, waiting for Miss Minnick to start the school day. "Good morning, class," said Miss Minnick. "I have a special announcement. The Mulberry Meadow Art Museum has invited us back for a visit. We will leave first thing tomorrow morning." Layla turned to Zoe and whispered, "Isn't tomorrow going to be terrific? I can hardly wait." Waking up from her daydream, Zoe said, Hardly wait for what?" "Didn't you hear what Miss Minnick said? We're going to the art museum tomorrow. I won't be able to think of anything else for the rest of the day." Zoe sighed. Great. But Zoe didn't feel great. On her last trip to the art museum, there was a painting that reminded her of her favorite fairy tale. She was so busy looking that she didn't notice the class leaving. When she looked up, she didn't know what to do or where to go. "It felt like I was alone forever. I never want to go to that museum again," she thought. Walking home after school, Zoe's mind filled with worries. She tried to read her fairy tale book, but thoughts of lonely rooms and scary pictures filled her mind. As Zoe neared home, she was filled with fear and worry. Once inside, Zoe hurried past Mama and Zach. She headed straight to her bedroom to be alone under her safe purple quilt. After a few minutes, Mama ventured down the hall to check on her. Zoe peeked out from under her quilt and slowly began to share her worries with Mama. Mama had good listening ears. She said, "Every mouse experiences worry, and I can certainly understand why you feel anxious. We do remember trouble. We imagine it could happen again. We get scared and anxious. We want to keep safe. That's just how God made us. It sounds like you might want to stay home from the field trip." Zoe nodded her head yes. Mama continued, "Worry wants you to believe that you are all alone and God isn't with you to protect you. But that's not true. Jesus is with you. He cares for you. I had lots of fears and worries when I was a young mouse. Your grandpa used to read to me from the great book. There's a verse in that book that says, 'God is your refuge, a safe place from trouble and fear.' That verse is true. You can trust God to keep you safe." God kind of reminds me of my purple quilt, squeaked Zoe from under her quilt. Yeah, but so much better, Mama replied. God is always with us. Another place in the great book says, I will never leave you or forsake you. You are mine. So that means even though I can't see God, he's here, said Zoe. Yes, said Mama. Wherever you go, Jesus is with you. I still have worries too, but I asked Jesus for help. You can't change tomorrow by worrying, but you can tell Jesus your worries. Turn each fear into a prayer, and he will help you. And don't forget how important it is to listen carefully to the people in charge of keeping you safe. Some of your worry might be helped if you put on your listening ears when Miss Minnick is talking. The next day, Zoe awoke. During the night, scary thoughts had filled her mind, but Zoe remembered her talk with her mama. Jesus is with me. Jesus wants to help. Zoe prayed, Jesus, I know I have trouble listening and paying attention. I'm worried that today I will get lost in the museum, and I'm so afraid. Please help me. As Zoe was leaving for school, Papa gave her a slip of paper with words from the great book. She tucked the verse in her pocket. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious. Love, Papa. Papa gave her a kiss and reminded her, pull it out and read it when you feel anxious. On the path to school, instead of worrying, Zoe noticed how many shades of green were in God's world. She didn't feel so alone. She knew that God was with her, and she felt his peace. Suddenly, Layla ran up to her, exclaiming, off we go! I'm so excited I could hardly sleep last night. She took Zoe's hand, and together they ran the rest of the way to the school and fell into line, with the rest of the class already waiting to leave for the Mulberry Meadow Art Museum. When they arrived at the museum, Zoe took a deep breath and prayed, God, help me to pay attention. Thank you for your listening ears. Thank you for never leaving me. The great oak tree guarding the entrance to the museum invited them in. The class walked into a room that Zoe had never visited. She was enthralled. There is so much to see. In all my worry, I forgot how much I love the art museum. Each painting was from a fairy tale. Zoe's favorite was the mural of the mouse and the elephant. She imagined being the brave mouse courageously approaching the enormous elephant. Lost in the painting, Zoe didn't notice the rest of the class leaving. Suddenly, Zoe looked around. No one is here! The class is gone! I am all alone! What should I do? Zoe remembered. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the note. The Lord is near. Zoe prayed right then and there. I'm sorry for not paying attention. I'm listening, Lord. Thank you for being near. Please help me to know what to do. Then she remembered that all she had to do was find the great oak at the beginning of the meadow. She walked out of the gallery and saw the great oak and her class in the distance. As she ran toward them, she heard her friends laughing and talking as they ate lunch under the trees. Miss Minnick saw her and exclaimed, Zoe, there you are. I'm so glad to see you. I must do a better job at keeping track of the class. Are you okay, my dear? Zoe replied, Yes, I am. Thank you. I'm so sorry for not following you in the class. I'm learning to have listening ears. And, Miss Minnick, I am more than okay. I'm learning a lot on this field trip. In our story today, Zoe was scared and worried. She didn't like being alone. She didn't like being lost. Sometimes we do worry about things that we have no control over. Sometimes we worry about things that maybe, just like Zoe not listening to her teacher, we could do something about, like listening to our mom or staying close when she tells us to stay with her. The thing I want you to remember is, in any situation, when you're anxious or worried, God's Word has words that bring encouragement and remind you that He would never leave us or forsake us, and that we are His, and that He is a refuge, a place that we can run and hide. and that He's always listening. So when you get anxious or worried, stop and take a minute to remember some of the promises from God's Word that remind us that He is here and He is with us. Hey guys, I know it's gym night and you're missing out once again, and I'm so very sorry. I have a couple ideas of some things that you can do at home, whether there's just one of you or whether there's a whole family of you at home. So one idea was, in the story, Zoe was walking through the woods and she saw all these different things that were shades of green, and it reminded her that God was with her. So maybe you could go outside or even around your house and look for 10 things that are green, but each green has to be a slightly different shade of green. So send me a shot on Facebook of your picture of your 10 differently shaded green things. Another idea that you could do would be to do shadow art. And luckily today is going to be a gorgeous sunny day. But even if you couldn't do this outside in the sun, you might be able to do this inside with a lamp. You'll probably have to get your mom to help you. But you lay your piece of paper down and you set your object, it can be an animal or anything, and then the sun will create a shadow, and then you're going to trace around the shadow on the paper. The third thing that you can do is play statues. And that's another game where you can one person can either count or play music, and you're dancing and making crazy moves, and then when the music stops or the counting stops, you have to freeze. And you have to hold that exact position. And if you move a muscle, and that leg drops or that arm wavers, then you are out. So have fun playing these games, and I'll see you on Sunday. Love you. Bye.